how many times in our MMA betting career am I going to be on the guy that decides to not put his hands up? What was that?
I can watch my bet lose like Anthony Hernandez and be disappointed, and then I go bet on Kennedy and Chukwu and see what he did, and I'm like, you're a jerk.
Welcome to First Strike, only on VSiN, the sports betting network. Here's your hosts, Dave Ross and Rob Moreno.
We are back. First Strike here on VSiN. Dave Ross, Rob Moreno coming at you. Rob, very excited to get up super early for UFC Shanghai this week. You and I have been having a lot of fun on social media. Please give us a follow, by the way, and reach out to us there as well about the body clock that you and I are going to have to get up here for Umar Nurmagomedov, Song Yadong, the main event over there at Shanghai. We'll get to the numbers as the show goes. But I do mean this, and you and I have talked about it. I know Lufa Nicaro feels the same way. It's more fights for us to talk about, more fights for us to bet. And if we got to adjust the body clock every so often, Rob, to get more events, I'm totally down with the UFC program.
I'm actually all for it. I actually really enjoy waking up, watching the fights, and then still having a Saturday to go do whatever it is I want to do. Now, the start time for this one caught me a little more off guard. I don't know what I had seen, and I convinced myself that it started 6 a.m. Pacific time, and I was riding with that. I had that plan in my head, and then you and the great guys at Just Win Bets, baby, let me know. No, this starts 3 a.m. Eastern, which means midnight Pacific, and I'm not even sure. I don't know if I'm staying up, waking up. I don't know which one I'm doing, but I'll catch the fights at some point.
I have a feeling I'll be getting up super early with that alarm clock and then staying up for football, college football over there in Dublin later on in the day. So it's going to be a full day of sports, but certainly we'll be excited to break down that main event. But before we do that, Rob, I did want to look back last week at UFC Sacramento. And, you know, we had kind of the quote unquote easy handicap for it. And we said it's going to be RoboCop early and it's going to be Fluffy Hernandez late. It almost worked out exactly in that way. I got lucky. I do consider myself fortunate to get the over 2.5, which was my biggest play on the board, because I thought Fluffy was dead in that second round and this fight is going to get stopped. And RoboCop, thankfully, followed him down to the ground where that leg was completely compromised, and Fluffy was able to survive off his back, and we thought he'd have the grappling exchange advantages there. And then in the third round, Rob, you saw the smile on his face. He came out and dominated RoboCop, and I think, oh, my goodness, we're going to cash them all, baby. And then the fourth round, it just kept flipping back, forth. That pendulum kept swinging in that main event.
Oh, my gosh. If you were looking at the odds, so at some point, which I wish I was much quicker on my live betting. I mean, it's hard. I mean, anyone who's done live betting, especially for MMA, that number just boom, 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 jumps, and it's off the board. And if you don't get it, you don't get it. But at one point, especially between round 2, 3, 4, you could have gotten both guys at over plus $2, if not more, depending how, like, it was absurd the way the pendulum was swinging. But you're right, you know, and I pulled up the scorecards, and I mentioned to someone, I was talking to our good friend Isaiah Wrinkle about the fight, and he said, after all 5 rounds finished, hey, that's RoboCop, right? And I said, yes, it should be. And I said, but this is before the 5th round. I apologize. I said, if Fluffy can pull something crazy in this 5th round as far as pressure, and I was like, someone might give him the score. And one of those scorecards, so one judge gave Fluffy the first round, and there's also another judge that gave him the 3rd round. So it's possible mathematically he could have stolen that fight in some kind of way. And you're right. When that 2nd round ended and he was limping around, I was like, oh my, we have like another leg situation in the UFC, and this is done. It's only a matter of time. And oh my, I don't know what they did between rounds. You know, this isn't the NFL. He didn't go into the tent and come out miraculously ready to go for 2 more quarters. But man, that 3rd round, he put the pressure on RoboCop. And I was like, this is the Fluffy I love to watch. Now, obviously, that still hindered him. He had to switch his fighting stance. He obviously couldn't get the strength out of the takedowns that he wanted. But, man, the guy showed some heart. And, you know, after kind of the disappointing fight against Sean Strickland he put up, while the result was not the way I had seen, I still loved what I saw out of Fluffy. And it just shows that he's got a chance in all 5 rounds, no matter what.
His hands looked better as the fight went on too, right? And so if you notice, and I know you did, he would kind of do that pitter patter 1-2 and then level change. And at some point later in the fight, maybe the 4th round, I'm going, stop level changing. Like, just you're doing okay with the hands. Now, look, you don't want to fight a hands game with RoboCop for 25 minutes. I understand that point too. So you are mixing up the strategies, which seem to be working there. But I got to give a tip of the cap to RoboCop and Gregory Rodriguez in this one, because I really was waiting for him to fade. And he was banged up too. If you saw these guys afterward, and I've been fortunate enough in my years of covering the sport when I used to attend more of the fights, whether it was in Chicago or Las Vegas, obviously. And I'll never forget being, let's say, Henry Cejudo. I covered a fight of Henry's in Chicago, and they wheeled Henry out in a wheelchair. He won the fight that night against Marlon Moraes, and he had to be wheeled out to do the interview with me. I was like blown away. And you saw both those guys. RoboCop was on crutches, and Fluffy was in a wheelchair to get around after that fight. I think people sometimes forget, and I know for our enjoyment in the betting markets and what we do in a week out, what their bodies are really undertaking. And I do have to tip my cap to RoboCop. He was equally beat up, and yet he really pushed himself and got through that fifth and final round. And I think deservedly, even though it was on the Fluffy side to win the fight, I thought the right guy got his hand raised in the end.
Absolutely. Caps off to RoboCop. I mean, he showed heart. And equally, I'm sure there's a part of him that was curious after that third round of like, what do I got to do to this guy to put him down? But he fought through it. His hands looked great. His takedown defense looked great. He fought the right game plan, right? Going towards the leg, weakening his ability to get the takedowns. And yeah, after the fight, they looked like they were in a car wreck. Totally. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful watching them interact and give respect to each other. I think RoboCop was like, hey, we should train together sometime because I got to get my cardio the way you do.
Yes.
Which that would be a dangerous man if Gregory Rodriguez had the tank that Fluffy has. But props, it was an absolute great main event in Sacramento.
Yeah, you combine those two fighters, that might be your next champion. You can see in that weight class there. By the way, I did have some added plays. This is why we talk about, if you're a VSiN Pro subscriber, what we do on the show is not necessarily our final ones. I did add a Sergey Spivak ticket, but that got blown up in the co-main event. I'm a little disappointed. The cardio didn't look great for Sergey in that 3-round fight there. But I think one fight that was the most perplexing for me was Shamil Gaziev against Kennedy Nzechukwu. And Rob, how many times in our MMA betting career am I going to be on the guy that decides to not put his hands up in a light heavyweight, middleweight, or heavyweight bout as this was? What was that?
I was I even start the podcast with my hands up. For anyone who doesn't watch the YouTube, I put my hands up at the beginning of the podcast. Always walk in with your hands up. I mean, I talked about two paths for this fight. If Kennedy can keep the fight standing and striking, he has a shot. But in my head, I thought that 5-inch reach would come into play because his hands would be up. He came in, I don't even know if he ever put them up once. No. He thought he was Anderson Silva out there. He had his hands down by his knees, thought he was bobbing and weaving. One punch, and he went out cold, and I hope he learned his lesson. But like, it goes to what you've said. It's just, I don't know how you end up on that side and think, wow, I mean, he goes on my hit list. It's just not unbettable. I can't trust him. He's not a guy I want to back in any kind of scenario. Very disappointed to see him walk out that way. It just kind of feels disrespectful to the sport of MMA to just think that's who I am.
Amen, brother. Look, when we started First Strike here at VSiN, which I can't believe is 5 years ago now, which is awesome. I remember one of the early fights that we had. It was Sean Strickland against Alex Pereira. And I love
who was that?
Some young guy named Alex Pereira. Yeah. New on the scene, right? Had not even fought Izzy yet here in this iteration of the UFC. Think about how long ago that was. And Strickland thought, I'll walk down this behemoth with my hands down. And of course, we all know what happened. He gets knocked out in 1-2. And, you don't do that to Sean Strickland because normally he's not that dumb of a fighter, right? And so you hate to use fight IQ, but sometimes you have to ask yourself, like Sean Strickland, I would think he learned a valuable lesson. I hope you're right that Kennedy Nzechukwu learns a valuable lesson because the guy is really skilled. But to do that, Shamil Gaziev had to be thinking, oh, wait, you're just going to give me free shots at this thing?
I don't have to worry about a jab or anything?
Nothing's coming back. Your hands are down here, as you mentioned, like Anderson Silva. Great. Not great for those of us that had tickets on you, Kennedy. So, again, if you lose the fight, but again, it's hard for us to get in the fighters' minds. You lose the fight, but you fight technically sound. I'm okay with that. But when you fight like that haphazardly, you get what you deserve sometimes. Sean Strickland got it back in the day. I think Kennedy learned a very, to your point, valuable lesson, but it's not going to get our tickets back. That's for sure.
No, and like I said, like I can watch my bet lose like Anthony Hernandez and be disappointed, but man, he fought the fight. He he gave it his all. And then I go bet on Kennedy and Chukwu and see what he did, and I'm like, you're a jerk. Like I just
By the way, that's a great parallel. We can understand losing the Fluffy Hernandez tickets. We can't really understand and justify losing the Nchekwu decisions. You said this and it caught my interest in the rundown before our show here, and I like to be surprised, and I think you have a surprise for me with Justin Gaethje and golf. How did this come about?
Yeah, so Gaethje's a big golfer. I don't know if you know that. He loves doing that in his free time. And I got to give a shout out Destiny McCubbin. She's the co-host of In the Corner with our guy Doug Vasquez for Sports Illustrated. She also works with Cage Side Press. Great follow on Instagram, by the way. She's doing a lot of fight interviews. She was cage side at Dana White's Contender Series last night. So great coverage for the sport of MMA from Destiny. But she had an interview with Justin Gaethje recently talking about golf and if he likes to wager with his buddies on golf. And so respectfully speaking, you tell me, is this a good friend or a bad friend? Because, his buddies may not have the same kind of bankroll that he has, being lightweight champion of the UFC. So what he says he does is he lets his friends choose a number, let's say $100. That's the example he uses. And he says, if my buddy wins, I pay him the 100. But if I win, I give him a leg kick for the amount, he judges his power based on how much he bet. So I give him $100 worth of a leg kick. So it's kicker's choice. What say you? Is that a good friend or a bad friend? And would you play golf with Justin Gaethje?
Okay, first of all, this is amazing. I've interviewed Justin many times back in the day, and he actually invited me and my co-host at the time, Tyler Fulgham, if you watch him on ESPN, does a great job these days. He invited Tyler and I to come out to Colorado and play golf. Now, we were gung-ho about playing golf with Justin Gaethje. Why wouldn't you be? I am so glad we did not take him up on that.
You could be walking around with a limp today.
A permanent limp. Here's the thing. Okay, our buddy Matty Betts, and I love Matty, who's also a great follow in the MMA space. He's actually taken a leg kick, I think from Renato Moicano, if memory, or maybe it was Gilbert Burns. I can't remember, but he actually did. Now, look, props to Matty for doing that. I'm too old. I can't take a leg kick from Justin Gaethje because he beats me in golf. No way, Justin. Bad friend. I would rather pay you the money. Okay, I can earn more money back in our capitalistic society.
I can't grow another leg, Justin.
Exactly. So I can't get my inner thigh back, and damaged goods now out there. I'm still a single man. I'd like to keep my legs intact in case there's a suitor to be out there. Rob, there's no way I'm taking leg kicks from that guy in particular or any professional MMA fighter out there. No chance. I'm paying you the $100, Justin. I would not accept the clause in the golfing contract.
Yeah, and you actually made the best point. It's the age thing too. I mean, maybe his buddies are younger. I mean, so I grew up doing martial arts. I took plenty of leg kicks. I remember walking around school with bruises down my thigh. It was what it was, but I was young. I am not at the age where I need to have a giant bruise on the side of my leg walking around limping at work. People at VSiN would be like, what's going on? Be like, I went golfing. What do you mean? So yeah, I'd rather pay the money. I'd rather just pay the money to the man.
Our buddy Nick Diaz, who we've had on the show through the years at First Strike as well. Nick would, when I lived out there in Vegas, he would always invite me, which is so cool of Nick to do, to practice jiu-jitsu because I don't know Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right? And I tell him, I go, Nick, man, I love you, dude. I'm too old to be rolling out there with you. He's like, no. It's, that's why we got belts and all these things. And I'm like, dude, I know my limitations. And golfing with Justin Gaethje has now become a limitation because as fun as it sounds on the surface, the pressure now to know that I'm going to get leg kicked from the lightweight champion of the world. If I lose this, Rob, I'm out on that equation.
Yeah, that's what I like about golfing right now. It's like I I know it's just me against me, really. You know, I'll play with my buddies, but golf is not something I wager on because I only wager on things I'm confident in. I am not confident enough in my golf game, and especially if there's a leg kick involved at the end.
That, by the way, that is a story. I knew he loved golf because I know how big of a nut he is on golf, like I am, but I did not know that that was the punishment. That's worse than those fantasy football punishments that people have to do. You take a leg kick from Justin Gaethje. Rob, let's take a quick break, but when we come back, let's get into this UFC Shanghai card. And sometimes when you look at the card here, there's not a lot of Americans on it by design. I wonder if body clock comes into play here for some of these fighters. We'll break down at least the main event, the co-main event, see what the Modelo plays that you have. That is all next, right here. First Strike on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You're tuned in to First Strike, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We continue First Strike here on VSiN. Dave Ross and Rob Moreno coming at you again. We tell everybody no better time than the present to be a VSiN Pro subscriber. $9.99 will get you in the door here for 1 month. There are much better offers out there, 50% off for yearly subscriptions. We understand if you're new to VSiN and you just want to dip the toe in, that's great. But if you want to go all the way in, like Rob and I here, we would highly encourage you taking a look. You're going to get really some better bang for your buck there, Rob. And again, not just our fight picks that we give each and every week, the experts that we have, not just on our show, but on By the Book, shameless plug, 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern with Jensen Lewis, like guys like Lou Finicaro. You're going to get access to all of the UFC talk, football talk, baseball talk, you name it, that we do every day here on the network.
We've got it all, and we got guys for everything. I mean, we've got NFL Guide 2.0 coming out right before the season starts. That's exciting. And I realized today, going to VSiN.com, we also have a fantasy football guide that is available on our website. I downloaded it today. It's from Fantasy Life, so shout out Fantasy Life with the partnership. I don't know how that came about. I had no idea. But, hey, you need fantasy football advice, we've got that too, and you can check it all out.
That's fantastic. And again, like Rob says, we got a guy. So if you need a guy to fix your car, we got a guy here that's going to fix your betting, no matter what sport that you might want to bet. Let's talk about UFC Shanghai. And look, we're going to get up super early to watch this fight card here. I'm a big Song Yadong guy going up against Umar Nurmagomedov here in the main event. I'm not surprised, Rob, that he's a $4 betting underdog. I think I'm surprised that the number keeps going up to the Umar path. And I get it. If he gets the fight down to the ground, it's a different level normally. So I look at Song Yadong and I kind of go, this is a guy that sometimes can be the physically imposing guy in this weight class. Rob, I'm wondering what the numbers show you, because if he can stuff the takedowns, which is a big ask, I get it, then could we possibly have a massive live dog here?
You know, Song Yadong's, he's super exciting to watch. But, you know, it's unfortunate because he's had kind of a tough go when he faces upper level talent. Peter Yan, Sean O'Malley, he's fallen to those guys. He's 2-2 in his last 4, which it's hard to make, or sorry, 2-2. Yeah, 2-2 in his last 4. And it's hard to make that argument that he's always at the cusp of maybe a title shot eventually. And I get it. He's going to have the home crowd behind him, but he's got a mountain to climb here in Umar Nurmagomedov. Let me put the numbers up here for everybody to watch. If you want to check us out, check out the YouTube version of the show.
This is how we've just, the show has grown exponentially, Rob, when you put up these numbers. I mean, I get excited every week to see these.
Makes me excited. So their reach, Umar's going to have a reach advantage. So even in the striking department, there's going to be that challenge. And the XR percentage. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's 20-1 in his professional career. His only career loss is Merab Dvalishvili in that title fight. And you got to think, when there's a new guy holding the belt, Umar probably wants a shot at him. 83% XR percentage. And that's the kind of number you build when you're as dominant the way he is. I mean, we saw Islam Makhachev do what he did, and that's what these guys do. I mean, they just kind of take you down, suffocate you, and just control the fight 100%, where there's no doubt that they're winning. And 83% XR percentage is exactly what that does. Song Yadong, nothing bad, 64%, but it does show kind of that back and forth battles that he has. You know, he's not as consistent as I think we would like. He is still young, 28 years old, not even 30 yet. But he's got a challenge ahead of him here in this one. Now, in the striking, Umar, even though it's not his main thing, he does very efficiently. 3.86 significant strikes landed per minute for Umar with a 2 differential, meaning he's only absorbing 1.86. He is in there and out of there quickly. He's only eating the necessary shots in order to get to you. He wants to close the gap, 58% time at distance. So he's not scared to strike. He does have one knockdown scored, but he has been knocked down twice. So he's aware, I just need to get out of the way, get in, and get the takedowns. Song Yadong, on the other hand, 78% time at distance. And you talked about it. He's kind of physically always appeared the bigger man.
Yeah.
He does have the power to go along with that frame. 7 knockdowns scored in his UFC career. Now, in his last 4 fights, he hasn't scored one, but it doesn't mean the power's gone. I mean, he's still young. We know that power still exists. Now, his striking is also very clean and efficient. 4.34 significant strikes landed per minute, 0.53 differential. So he's only absorbing 3.81. But man, he's gonna have to be quick and get that takedown defense going, because Umar has a 93% control rate in the clinch and ground time. I mean, he is suffocating. If you ever heard of the last name Nurmagomedov and heard suffocating control on the ground, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And he spends 39% of that ground time in a controlling position. Now, he's not the most accurate, 47%, but these guys, they don't have to be 100% accurate. They're like a dog on a bone. They're going to, as soon as they grab a hold of you, they're working the takedown and they're going to suffocate you to get you down. Song does have a 74% takedown defense, but most of that was built against only a couple fighters. I can't say that he's faced the type of grappler. Let's just say he has been taken down by much lesser grapplers than Umar Nurmagomedov. So it's hard to say. And he's got a couple takedowns himself, but most of those takedowns were created in like only a couple fights. So, I mean, no one's going to be shocked by this, but the model does go Umar Nurmagomedov's way. He is a tier 1 favorite, but here's where we got to look at the math and look at the odds, because the win probability from the model is strong, 74%. That means it's highly confident in Umar getting the win. But the odds, you talked about it, they keep growing and growing. Minus 510. Minus 510 is implying close to 80-something%. So if you're planning on playing Umar Nurmagomedov, you got to get creative with it, because I don't even feel confident to put him in a parlay, because that's too much. The juice is not worth the squeeze there. But his props are even kind of hard. So which way are you leaning? I believe Umar Nurmagomedov gets this done, but this might be a price type situation here.
Here's a weird thing for me, Rob, and you're right. You got to figure out creative ways to do it. I think the popular play is going to be Umar by decision. And when you look at the total here, it's sitting at 4.5. Think about this. It's juiced to minus 245, minus 250 in some places here, over 4.5 in this potentially 5-round main event. And I went back and looked, and look, these guys don't get finished even when they lose, right? And Song Yadong only has 1 stoppage since going back in the last 3 years to 2023. And that came against Davison Figueiredo in a 2nd-round submission. Davison maybe a little bit longer in the tooth. And the same thing for Umar. You have to go back to the first month of 2023, January 2023, 3.5 years ago, for the last time he stopped somebody inside the octagon. So it feels like, and the numbers implied, that we're going to get to an over. But here's my point of contention there. With that juice to the...
My gosh, his money line just moved to 535, by the way.
Oh, my, see, in real time. Like, that's getting out of pocket for me. Okay, can we see a world where if Umar constantly gets the takedowns on Song Yadong, that Song's just like fish out of water on the ground, I can't stop anything, you get tired of defending 25 minutes. I'm going to look to an underplay. I don't have it in pocket yet, but I almost might be, as they say, seduced by the juice in this one. I have to think that Song knows that as the fight stays standing, he's got to go for broke. He's got to go for broke and throw heavy leather. And by the off chance that he can hit and hurt Umar, and we've seen Umar sometimes not look the greatest in there, and even his decision victories here, that you can make a case that then all of a sudden he's got to do maybe a sloppy takedown attempt, and maybe there is a finish possibility. And the other side is that Umar's wrestling is just too good that Song Yadong just gets physically tired of sitting there for 25 minutes and not 15, and that a stoppage could come. I might be looking to the under as a way to play it and root for chaos and violence here, because I just think at some point, if you realize I can't win this fight if you're Song Yadong, because I can't stop the takedowns, he's going to get reckless, make himself vulnerable, and if he can't get that stoppage with his hands, he actually might get submitted on the ground. An underplay is where I'm looking early, but it's not an official play yet.
I agree with that assessment. Because it's kind of actually what we saw from Davison Figueiredo when he fought, which by the way, both
Yes.
guys coming off
Yes.
victories with Davison. Umar just took him down to a decision because you're right. Umar's not exactly the flashiest. He's not really risking a lot, but I could see Song being the riskier guy. And yes, that's how that played out with Davison. And we kind of talked about that when we talked that fight was if Davison just sees no way out, he might just kind of get desperate and just try whatever. And that's how he ended up getting submitted by Song Yadong, where, like you said, Song's not really a finisher either. So we could end up with that same kind of equation. And you're right. And you get 4.5 rounds to make that happen where, round 3 happens and Song knows he's down 3 rounds. It's time to get crazy. And hey, something could happen. Something could pop. Either, like you said, he starts throwing hands and catches Umar and Song remembers the power he has, or he gets sloppy in the takedowns, gives up his back, and Umar gets a submission. So both things can be live there with the under, because even Umar by decision, now I don't have it here in Vegas yet, offshore across the pond. It was around -190 yesterday. Now, DraftKings does have -170, but depending on what I get here in Vegas, even -190, -200, I'm assuming, that's not worth it to me either to play by decision. So
I agree. I'm going to look to that. Look, at some point, if you're Umar Nurmagomedov and you keep taking this guy down relentlessly, finish. Look to finish. Like that. I think that's what Dana White wants too, right? Like we know that's for bonuses, incentives, all those things, title shots, all those things that he's looking for. If you clearly are out grappling this guy and he's got no chance, don't just control. I think at some point you get more aggressive, kind of like we saw when Davison Figueiredo. I think that's the perfect example of how an under potentially could get home for 4.5. So for me, if there's any value in the number, it would be looking to under 4.5. If I want to take that price point at over $2, that's probably where I'm looking. If Umar is going to be that controlling, if you will, and Song Yadong finally just says, all right, screw this. I'll give up my back if I have to. I'm trying to get this guy out of there. I don't want to get ragdolled for 25 minutes. And maybe, again, a Davison Figueiredo scenario plays its way out. Denise Gomes is a fighter that I like to back here, but going up against Xiaonan here in the co-main event and looking at the numbers here on a Wednesday, Rob, and I'm seeing that Jan is about $1.55 favorite against Denise. That under right now, you can get really solid money if you think somebody's going to get finished at +220, heavily juiced, almost 3-1 here to go over 2.5 rounds. What are the numbers showing you?
So Xiaonan also very impressive early on in her career. I mean, she was a beast, opened her UFC career 6-0, got the title shot, and since then's kind of been floating around. I believe she's coming off a loss, I believe. Actually, let me double check that before I give bad information here. But yes, she's coming off a loss to Virna Jandiroba. 1-1 after her title shot. And actually, sorry, I apologize. After that 6-0 run, she's actually 3-4 since that 6-0 run. She did get that title shot in the middle. Weili Zhang, no shame losing to Weili Zhang in your title shot. But she's also coming off an over a year layoff. She last fought April of 2025, now 37 years old. I mean, that's always the question, is what do they have left to bring, especially when they're starting to hit 37, 38 years old, and now you're taking plus 1 year layoffs. It's hard to know what you're going to get there because Denise Gomes, 26 years old. She's a young pup here in the division, 4-fight win streak. XR percentages aren't exactly pretty here, 58%, 59%. I mean, they both just like to fight. It's kind of what that tells me. They'll both let a round slip here and there, but they both like to fight. In the striking, now, Jan, 4.69 significant strikes landed per minute with a 1.46 differential. Very clean, very efficient, very technical. She's a very technical striker, 3.23 absorbed per minute. Denise Gomes, though, not too bad. 4.02 significant strikes landed per minute, a 0.95 differential. So not as high, a little bit not as high volume, but she's also absorbing slightly less at 3 significant strikes per minute. So she's tough to hit. They both got a little bit of power, 2 knockdowns for Jan, 3 knockdowns for Denise. Neither one has ever been knocked down. But Denise doesn't always make her game only in the striking. She actually only stays at distance 42% of the time. She likes to get in close. She likes to make it kind of dirty. Denise Gomes, 52% control rate in the clinching ground time. And while that's not a huge number, she does spend 30% of the time on the ground in control. And Jan, only a 22% control rate in clinching ground time. So when things get close, Jan loses the ability to win the round. So if Denise can bring things close, because look, there's not a lot of offense in the takedown game. 10 takedowns for Denise, 11 for Jan, and I will say 73% takedown accuracy, but I believe 5 of those takedowns were against one opponent like 6 years ago. So very different when you start to look at it that way. That's not part of her offense. And 65% takedown defense both ways. Running things through the model, it's very close, right? You start talking about those numbers, it's very tight, it's very close, which means we're going to lean the dog way because I see a lot of similarities in their numbers, and I'm just going with the age factor, momentum factor, and kind of just who I think has a little more fight in the tank right now. Nothing against Jan. She's a great fighter to watch, and it's unfortunate her title shot has already come and gone because that division's hungry right now with the new champ. That is kind of a motivating factor for Jan, though. She does have a win over the current champion, Mackenzie Dern, but that time has maybe come and gone because there's a hungry dog in Denise Gomes. 65% win probability. It's not the highest, but we just need a dog price. Now, I grabbed her at 135. She's now ticked down to 125. I like her as a dog. Dogs have been a little cold for me. Hopefully her hands are up and she gives me a fighting chance, though.
You and I are both on the Brazilian in this one. I love Denise Gomes in this one. She was knocking everybody out when she came into the UFC. You don't see that a lot in women's MMA. I got to tell you, I do think we're going to get a firefight. I think these ladies are going to throw down in the first 5 minutes. I think that's exactly what they want. I would also look to that under at over 2-1 right now because I do think somebody could get caught and possibly get slept. So I expect fireworks in this one. As you mentioned, forget about the takedowns. That's not what these ladies want to do. So if you give me 15 minutes to throw, or hopefully if you're taking that under, at least 12.5, I'll be looking to that under, but I really do think this is a live dog in Denise here. So I love the age gap that we're getting here at 10 years younger. Rob, I'm right there with you. So for me, the plays that I will be adding to the cards that I don't have yet will be Gomes as the co-main event, and I'll be looking under 4.5 in the main event here. I'm going to be playing those plus prices, and let's hope we can get both of them. But if we at least get one, we know we're going to have some positive ROI.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. And I think that's what we like doing here on First Strike. It's just finding, I think the main event was a great example of that. We're just finding value. Like we lean a certain way, but if you're going to bet this, we're going to try to find the best number for you guys. And I love those plays. I haven't gotten myself to the under either for the main event, but I think that's probably the smartest way to play this. And I'll be on the dog in Denise Gomes.
Yeah, I'll be yelling at Umar if he just lays in praise. Let's go! Finish this fight here. You got him down for 5 rounds. Let's do something with it. Rob, great numbers, as always. We tell everybody out there, please like, subscribe. If you haven't already, tell a friend. We appreciate you listening, watching, wherever you might be doing that from. But it is not only a labor of love that we love to do, but hopefully financially profitable for you MMA bettors out there. So we'll do it again next week. So for El Modelo, Rob Moreno, I'm Dave Ross. We'll see you next week right here. First Strike on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.